Hey, my beautiful people. Chris Walinski here. Some know me as the biracial boomer, apparently. Um, Welcome. I wanted to talk about eggs today. So, we're not going to talk about ultra processed meat for once, which seems to be my favorite topic these days. But no, I was at the grocery store buying eggs, and there's all these different choices, right? And then they're all, some of them are like $4 a dozen, and then some of them are like 6 or 7 or $8 a dozen, and like, what the heck's the difference? Well, obviously you're going to pay more for organic eggs than non-organic eggs, so that's one differentiation. But it has to do with, these are free range, these are pasture raised, these are also pasture raised organic, but these are certified humane. They're all different and they all cost different prices, right? So what is the difference? Let's go through this. The worst condition that the chickens can be in is a cage, okay? Because they only have to have 67 inches, 67 square inches of room, which is just under 70, which is like a 7 by 10. You think about a piece of paper, 8.5 by 11. That's like over 90 square inches. We're talking about less than 70. So like 3/4 of a sheet of paper per chicken in those cages. If you put a chicken in that cage, I guess they can stand up because they're gonna lay the egg. They're gonna go to the bathroom, but they can't spread their wings. They can't move around. And then those poor chickens, they can't even take like a dust bath that they like to do. Incidentally, I raised chickens when I was a wee lad. Anyway, so that's caged birds. So at one point they decided that putting chickens in these little tiny cages was unethical, so they went to cage free. So that was the first kind of alteration in the way that these chickens were raised. And cage free, really what that means is that they're in a barn. They're in a big barn, but they're only about 1 square foot per chicken. So if you think about like a 10 by 10 foot space, but think about that in your mind, it's not that big. There'd be 100 chickens in that space. So at least they're able to spread their wings, and they can lay eggs in a nest, which is much better, but they still have no daylight at all. Their whole cycle is predicated on the artificial light that's in the barn, but it's definitely better than putting these birds in cages. So then we go to free range. Right? Free range, fresh brown eggs. Think, well, this sounds really good. You know the difference between cage free and free range? The free range chickens live in a barn that has a small door on it. They may or may not know that there's a door in that barn. They're not required, when you raise these chickens, the farmers are not required to have the chickens go outside. There has to be a door that the chickens may or may not go out of. And if you have 1,000,000 chickens in this big giant barn, you only have to have one door, and it only has to be a small door. So chances are free range are very similar to cage free. Then we get to, you think that this is horrible, we get to pasture raised. Okay, pasture raised, you've seen this. That's the one you want, because pasture raised, instead of, what is it? So the caged birds have 67 square inches. The cage free have 1 square foot, which is 144 square inches. These have 108 square feet. 108 square feet, so a 9 by 12 or say 10 by 10 basically per chicken, which is tremendous because now they can do everything. They can act like chickens, and it's outside, so they can eat grass, they can scratch, they can eat bugs, they have more of a normal diet. And so when you're looking for the highest quality eggs, look for obviously organic, and then look for pasture raised eggs. One more thing that I wanted to talk about, actually 2 more things. One is, what about omega-3 eggs? How the heck are chickens why do they have omega-3? Because they don't normally have omega-3. They're like we are. Well, that depends on the feed. So if they give them feed that has like fish oil, flaxseed, chia seeds, algae even, then the chickens will have omega-3, or the eggs will have omega-3 in them, which are better for you. The thing is, think about this, they could feed omega-3 diet to a bird in a cage. If you have a caged bird eating omega-3 diet, now instead of charging $4 a dozen for those eggs, you can charge $7 or $8 a dozen for those eggs based on that feed. So don't be misled. Just because it's omega-3 doesn't necessarily mean that it's a more humane or a healthier, I guess it would be a healthier egg because it'd have omega-3 in it, but that's deceiving. All of this is deceiving, right? You think free range, home on the range. They've got, they're out in the middle of, no, they're in a barn with a little door on it. And the final thing I wanted to talk to you about real quick, when I was raising chickens, I remember that our yolks were like orange. It wasn't like yellow like what we get in the store. They were like orange, and I thought, well, that's just because they're fresh eggs, and it really has more to do with the diet. If you're feeding your chickens, yellow corn, white corn, alfalfa, wheat, which are the normal things that you would feed your chickens, you're going to have light colored yolks. And then in order to have a darker yolk, sometimes they deliberately put in things with carotenoids, beta carotene. So they'll put in like red peppers or marigold petals and things that will give the yolk a little bit more color to give it the impression that they're healthier. And they do tend to have more vitamin A and C, but they're not necessarily healthier in that they may not have any omega-3. They might not have more protein in them. But I mean, I'd prefer darker yolks to the lighter yolks, and you may too. So that's your lesson on these pasture-raised, free-range, cage-free, caged eggs, and what the difference is. So hopefully that helps you out. And the next time you go to the grocery store, look for pasture-raised, organic, and if you can get it to say certified humane, even better. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Be a blessing.